Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. On this channel, we spend our time looking at fantasy of all sorts, from books to movies to video games, and applying the characters within into the tabletop game Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. Today, though, we're going to be looking at a core mechanic of D&D itself, specifically a Druid subclass from the player's handbook, the Druid Circle of the Land. Now, the Circle of the Land Druid is a complicated subclass with a crap ton of variety to it, and we're going to go over a decent amount of that in this video today. The Druid of the Land is a spellcaster first. They focus on their magic, and they focus on their resistance to said magic, as well as the variety of their spells. And we're going to cover those in quite a bit of detail today. Now, very first thing that the Druid gets at level 2 is a bonus cantrip. I mean, a bonus cantrip is nice. You really can't argue with that. It doesn't do a whole lot. The Druid cantrips are kind of limited. There's not a whole lot of attacking or utility in there. There's some decent ones, and one extra one, I give it a 6 out of 10. Usually Druids get their favorite cantrips up front, so it's a minor addition. They also get a power called Natural Recovery at level 2. This basically means that during a short rest, normally Druids have to take a long rest to recover their spell slots, but during a short rest, they're allowed to regain spell slots that are equal to half their level rounded up. So a level 2 Druid would get a single level of spells back, a 4th level Druid would get 2 levels, and so on. This is pretty handy. Once per long rest, you can get some spells back just by taking a short rest. So, again, leaning into those spell powers. It's a small amount of magical abilities back, but it can be really helpful in a pinch. I give it a 7 out of 10. But then we get what we're really all here for, the spell list. Now, this is a complicated one, because Druids of the Land have to pick a land biome, and there are 8 options to choose from. The Druid of the Land chooses between the Arctic, the coast, the desert, the forest, the grassland, the mountain, the swamp, and the Underdark. And when they choose this at level 3, they then will get an expanded spell list, similar to a cleric, where they get 2 free spells added to their list at 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th level. So that's 8 free spells for each of those circles. Now, this is a tough one to measure just by looking at those 8. We actually have to look at the spells involved. So I'm going to go over all 8 of them here real quick. The Arctic is pretty good, actually. It gives you stuff like Hold Person, Sleet Storm, Slow, Ice Storm, Cone of Cold. I give this one a 7 out of 10 on its spell, or sorry, a 7 out of 8 on this spell list, because there's only 8 spells here. The Coast, you get some really cool ones. Mirror Image and Misty Step, Water Breathing, Freedom of Movement, Conjure Elemental, even Scrying is on this list. I give this one a 6 out of 8 for the Coast. The Desert, you get Blur, you get Create Food and Water, you get Hallucinatory Terrain, but you also get Insect Plague, Wall of Stone. Not bad. 6 out of 8 for this one. The Forest, you get Barkskin and Spider Climb. You get Call Lightning. You get Commune with Nature. You even get Tree Stride, which makes sense for the Forest. It's a 5 out of 8 in the Forest. There's a couple here that just don't really add up much. The Grassland. Grassland, you get Invisibility and Pass Without Trace. You get Haste. You get Dream and Insect Plague. Not bad. 6 out of 8 for that one. The Mountain. You get Spider Climb. You get Spike Growth. You get Meld into Stone, a great one. Stone Skin, Wall of Stone, and you get Pass Wall. These are all really phenomenal spells. I give the Mountain a 7 out of 8. The Swamp, you get Darkness, you get Water Walk and Stinking Cloud. You get Insect Plague, and you get Scrying, too. Pretty decent. I give the Swamp a 6 out of 8. And then finally, the Underdark. You get Web. You get Spider Climb, Gaseous Form, Greater Invisibility, Cloud Kill, and Insect Plague. This is a great one. 7 out of 8 for the Underdark. And when you add all of these numbers up, the expanded spell list, and you average them out, the expanded circle spells of the Circle of the Land Druid, it averages out to 8 out of 10. I had to do some math there because the spell lists were out of 8, and my ranking system's out of 10, but in general, the spell list is 8 out of 10. Some are more duddy than others, but keep in mind that you can specialize your druid depending on the campaign's setting. Some of them will be more useful than others, and this expanded spell list is pretty good for the druid overall. Moving along, the next power they get is the Land Stride at 6th level. The Land Stride allows them to move through difficult terrain as if it wasn't difficult terrain, and they have advantage on saving throws on being restrained or manipulated by magical plants. So this is handy in a lot of situations. It's a little niche, though, because if you're not anywhere near plants, or you're not fighting against wild magic sorcerers that, or wizards or druids or whatever that are trying to impede you using plants, this doesn't really do much. And difficult terrain comes up sometimes. It depends. I give this power a 6 out of 10. This druid focuses mostly on magic, and a lot of the time they'll be able to get around stuff just using their magic. But it's nice to have in your back pocket. At level 10, they get the Nature's Ward power. This means they cannot be charmed or frightened by elementals or fae. And they become immune to poison and disease. I mean, immunity to poison's not bad. And being not charmed by elementals or fae is pretty good. When you're fighting elementals and fae, those aren't the most common creatures in the game, though. It's very rare you'll be fighting elementals and fae on a regular basis, unless the campaign specifically calls for it. Putting this in a little bit of a niche situation, it's the same with disease and poison. They're not the most common effects that you'll find. I give Nature's Ward a 7 out of 10. Applicable sometimes. And then finally, Nature's Sanctuary at level 14. Creatures of the wild, such as beasts and plants, have to make a wisdom saving throw when they try to attack you. The creature is aware that it has to before it decides to attack. If they fail the save, they must redirect the attack to someone else or just miss automatically. Basically, what this means is that beasts and plants will have a very hard time hitting you. Period. With any attack, magical, physical, whatever. So when you're fighting beasts and plants, this is helpful. But it also comes in at level 14. Beasts and plants aren't something you usually have to fight at that kind of level. They don't really go up that high. And this comes in kind of late. I mean, yeah, sure, it's helpful when you fight a army of T-Rexes or giant apes, but again, that's a very specific situation. And plant monsters don't ever really get up that high either. So it's nice when it comes up for sure, but it's just not going to come up. I give Nature's Sanctuary 6 out of 10. It's not useless, it just comes in too late in the game to be really that applicable. And that's it. The Land Druid leans into its spellcasting very heavily, and is a front-loaded subclass. But when you crunch the numbers together, a lot of its skills fall a little short, and I give it a 7 out of 10. It's not bad. If you want to be that magical druid, this could be the one for you, especially if you pick the right spell list. But don't be thinking that your druid's going to be the master of nature, because honestly, just moving through hazardous terrain, being immune to elementals and faes charming and frightening you, and then at later levels, animals and plants won't attack you, it just seems a little bit half-baked. 7 out of 10, then. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below, and keep your eyes open for more subclass reviews coming up very soon. Have a good one, my friends.